Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is safe and doing well. I am Dr. Alok Sharma, the organizer and moderator of this webinar. Law Center 1, Faculty of Law, under the guidance and mentorship of our professor in charge, Professor Dr. Sarabjit Kaur, has been celebrating glorious years of Law Center 1, 50 glorious years. In the light of the same, we have been running a career-oriented series with the support of our PIC madam and other faculty members. In continuation of our career-oriented lecture series, we are delighted to have on board today Dr. Akhil Prasad, Director, Country Council India and Company Secretary at Boeing. Dr. Prasad is Country Council India and Company Secretary with Boeing International Corporation since September 2013 and is based at New Delhi. In past, he had held offices as Head of Legal and Company Secretary with Fidelity Worldwide Investment 2007 to 2013, Director India Legal Affairs and Company Secretary of the Walt Disney Company India 2005 to 2007, as Senior Attorney and Company Secretary of General Motors India 2003 to 2005, and as Assistant General Manager Legal with Electrolux Calvinator 2000 to 2002. Prior to these assignments, he has also worked with the legal teams in Modi Crop Group, including Modi Xerox, Graphic Tech India from 1995 to 2000. Dr. Akhil has about over 19-year experience as an in-house counsel and has worked with legal teams spread across different countries. Dr. Akhil has worked across various industries in the area of legal, risk and compliance, taxation, regulatory and corporate affairs. He has worked for Steel Office Automation, white good, computer hardware, media and entertainment, IT, TES, private equity, mutual funds, now aerospace and defense. His area of practice includes contracts, including international contracts and litigation, corporate law, competition law, environmental law, intellectual property law, industrial and employment laws, information technology and information technology enabled services, private equity, risk management, oversight and regulatory compliance, media law, merger acquisition, and restructuring, real estate, property laws, tax laws. Dr. Akhil holds a doctorate in law as well as doctorate in commerce, and he is a fellow member of Institute of Company Secretaries of India and Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrator UK. He is a non-practicing solicitor of England and Wales, has done the Master of Law Honors Program in US Laws with the Northwest University, Chicago, and Certificate in Business Administration Program from Institute de Empresa, Madrid. Dr. Akhil therefore has a legal expertise in India, US, and UK. Dr. Akhil is a vice chairman and an advisory board member to the Corporate Council Committee of the International Bar Association. He is the founder member of the Indian Corporate Council Association, an organization of in-house counsel in India. Dr. Prasad holds professional membership with the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators, UK, the Law Society, UK, Indian Council of Arbitration, India, FAC panel of arbitrators and conciliator India. He is an avid speaker and has participated in seminars in India and outside Madrid, Dubai, Boston, and many other countries. With a very warm heart, sir, I would like to welcome you for a brief discussion on achieving excellence in legal profession. And I know you are the best person to tell about it because you yourself have achieved excellence in the legal profession. Now over to you, sir. Very warm welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. And, it's indeed a great privilege for me to, to be coming back to the law campus, although after many years, but, and that too virtually, because I still believe that there is no substitute of a in-person interaction. Last time when I came over, I found that it was very, very stimulating for me come to the campus and address the students directly. But nevertheless, the times that we are living in, I think this is the safest way of reaching out to people. And so that has been my endeavor, that to reach to as many people as I can, learn from them, share my experiences. So even today, I would like to share my experiences in terms of how to bring about excellence in the work that we do today. So but thank you for a wonderful introduction. And I think the introduction itself perhaps gives a glimpse of what I will perhaps talk about today. So when I started my career, I started as a company secretary. So the first job that I took was in 1994. This is my 26th year in corporate life. And before that also, I started working with SR Gujarat in 1990. So my experience, that was a pre-qualification experience. So my stint with the corporate sector started many years ago. And what I realized, that while I was as a young professional, as a student, I was just after BCom. So I was not very clear as to what I should do, because BCom was a graduation. And then um, there were no such mechanisms as we have today, that there were career counseling sessions. So you could only talk to your friends or your teachers. But perhaps that the professionalism that we have today was perhaps not there at that point of time. So the only option was, whether you talk to your friends or see what they are doing. So I was still not able to decide as to what I should do. So after BCom, I sat for many MBA. So I wanted to do an MBA, because after you do commerce, the first thing is fashionable. Even that point of time was, why don't you do an MBA or do a CA? So I was not very comfortable doing chartered accountancy, for the simple reason that I was not very good in mathematics. I was not very good in accountancy, although I did well in BCom. But I was a little scared of doing chartered accountancy. So I thought that MBA should be the right thing for me. And then I, prepared and then sat for many examinations. I would have sat for about 30, 40 examinations. Whatever big institutions there were there, IIMs, Jamna Lal Bajaj, Narsi Monji, in Bombay, everywhere. And then unfortunately, I cleared all of the entrance exams, but I was not able to clear the interviews or the group discussions. Perhaps because our schooling system in those days were not oriented towards public speaking as we are today. Because like for example, in law faculty, I know there are moot courts, so students are taught how to be more communicative, because communication is the key. Perhaps I was not. So because of that, something inside me, I was a little scared. So perhaps at the interviews or at the group discussions, I did not speak much to clear the MBA entrance. So I failed in about 25, 30 examinations. And before that, even while I was in class 12, I also sat for a lot of medical entrance examinations, because my father was a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor, and I failed in all of them. So I had a tag of being failed in 12th in about 25, 30 medical entrance exams. And after BCom, I had a failure tag on my head about failing in about 30, 40 MBA entrance exams. So about 50 failures I had on my head. And I was quite, the, the, the mind was not very positive. The mind was very, I would say, I was very confused. And I was very, my confidence was very low after BCom. So then you have to take a decision in your life. What do you do? So after BCom, it was a big dilemma for me that I have not got admission anywhere. So I thought, why don't I do one thing? Why don't I take up um, so there was an opening which came in a company called SR Gujarat. This company was a Shashi Ruia, Ravi Ruia company. And that SR group had interest in telecom also, but those times they had interest in steel. And in steel, so they were looking for hiring some people on a temporary basis. So I got through and I joined them as a trainee, a graduate trainee. And that was when, my first experience in 1990 really started as a corporate experience. So corporate experience, and then when I joined them, the first thing they did, they were coming up with a 600 crore convertible debentures issue, public issue, and I was aligned with the company secretary. And there is the company secretary's position, going to the board meetings, dealing with the directors, corporate governance, uh, acquisitions, was something which I found to be very, very interesting. So I went to the company secretary and I asked him, sir, what what have you done? Like, how have you become a company secretary? So he said, don't you know that there is a program which it's like a chartered accountancy program, and you can go across the road. And this office was in Bombay, so Maker Chambers, Nariman Point. So he said, why don't you just walk across the street, and across the street you will see Jolly Maker Tower, and in Jolly Maker you will go and see there is a company secretary office. So I went there and I bought the syllabus, and it was very exciting because it had everything. It had legal, it had business studies, everything you could aim for. And then I do also simultaneously what I did. I also took admission in an MBA program, which was a diploma program. So I pursued two degrees at the same time, which was um, MBA, which was a diploma program from KC College, which is still a very prominent college in Bombay, and also CS program. So while I was working for SR, I sat for CS examinations, also for the diploma program. I cleared both of them. So the success in academics started then. It came to me very, very late. So if you look at my CV, I perhaps did my BCom in 1988, but the CS program I completed in 1994. So it took me about 6 years, because of those failures in life, because of the setbacks, professional, in family and others, that I started very late. So by the time I was 25, that was the time when I got my first post qualification degree, a first professional degree. These days, lawyers, students in law campus, they become lawyers when they are about 22, 23. But I did a CS degree at the age of 25. So I was pretty much late. And then, I came back to Delhi, and my father was not keeping well. And then I came back and I got an, sorry, I got an opportunity with Xerox, Modi Xerox, and I joined them as a company secretary for one of their companies. But then by that time, I had some real experiences in life. For example, while I was working for SR, I had to do some very, very menial or some type of work, which I am still very proud of. That I was involved in cleaning up an office space which had a lot of, I would say, raddi and rubbish inside the office because the public issue had just gone over. So I was sent there to clean the place myself. So somebody could have been bogged down that why am I doing this? But I took that as a learning opportunity and just to shake myself up, that I will never let that happen to me again. And that really inculcated inside me the value of education. So when I returned to Delhi in 1992, 93, I and I joined Xerox. So that was the time that I wanted to do law, and I did law from Meerut University. I belong to Meerut, and one of the reasons at that point of time to do it from Meerut was also that we could not afford to live in Delhi, and secondly, we could not afford a very high fees. So I thought that, and law degree is good in Meerut, it's good in Delhi, but perception wise, so that was another learning. So while I did law from Meerut University and I completed that in 1996, in 1997, I was being interviewed by a company, and the HR head of that company said to me that, "आप तो मेरठ यूनिवर्सिटी से डिग्री किए हो?" तो हमने कहा, "हाँ सर, लॉ तो पढ़ के पास होता है। कहते नहीं, वहां तो कोई भी चाकू काट के पास हो जाता है, आप चाकू दिखाओ और पास हो जाओ। हमने कहा भाई नहीं, हमने ऐसा तो नहीं किया। तो he said, but that was the perception of the person. So now what do you do when somebody has a perception about you? Do you fight that perception, or you don't do anything about that perception? Is a question that we need to ask ourselves, that there are two ways of dealing with yourself. Either you try and change a person who has a wrong perception about you, which means you fight with that person, or you change yourself so that that perception changes. So the perception for that person for me was that he has done company secretary through correspondence. He has done law from Meerut, which is not good. That was the person's perception, not my perception. So I thought that it is the right time that I do work harder. I work harder, I bring better quality in myself. Quality because of the perception of people. And then I did law I did LLM from Meerut University, then I did PhD from Meerut University in commerce. I also did LLD from Meerut University. And then I thought I should have similar qualifications from international universities. So I did LLM from Northwestern University in Chicago. I also did an MBA from Spain because it was a combined executive program of MBA and LLM. Because in US, there is a lot of focus on the business aspect. So if you were to do an LLM, these days they have made it compulsory that people should also know business. So I will talk about it in detail. And then I did last year. I also did a advanced leadership management program from the Wharton Business School, University of Pennsylvania. So that was, my way of bringing about excellence from a education point of view, and to keep myself abreast in a structured way. So I am not trying to tell students on this call or on this webinar that acquire 12 degrees like me. But what I'm trying to tell students at this webinar is that the value of education is paramount. In whatever way you want to educate yourself, whether through a structured or a structured program, education is a must. And concentration is a must. We have to, till the time we are into a profession, till the time we are earning, till the time we are working, we have to keep on educating ourselves. We have to keep on learning. So that is one mantra I will definitely say about. The second thing which I did in terms of, so that was the education part. The second is about dealing with your clients. So people on this call will become, practicing lawyers. People on this call will become in-house counsel. I think there can not be a sub of quality in what it is or whatever work we do. So when you are sending, for example, somebody who's just preparing a contract. So for somebody, it could be a simple contract. But whether that contract has been properly aligned, are spelling mistakes, whether there are typographical mistakes, whether there are legal mistakes, all those things is a duty of a lawyer. Whether you are a junior lawyer or a senior lawyer, a mistake is a mistake. And that mistake cannot be accepted by the client. So when a client gets your work product, the client should feel absolutely comfortable in terms of the quality that, I have as a lawyer provided. So for example, anything which goes to the board, in my board of directors, I am a member of the board of directors, we send the agenda papers. I make it a point that before it goes out, my team prepares the first cut, then I review it completely, before sending it to the board of directors. Because for them, it is, so again, then I have to set the perception correct for them, that if something is from this person who is our lawyer, we are assured. So very few profession in this world, like medicine, like law, work purely on trust. And that trust can be developed only when, number one, you have knowledge. Number two, your work quality is excellent. Nothing gets appreciated less than an excellent brief. So if you prepare something for filings before the court, you will win a litigation only if you have done a thorough research of your subject. The briefs have been prepared well, the submissions have been prepared well, so that quality can never be compromised in terms of whatever output we give to our clients, whether as a practicing lawyer or whether as a in-house lawyer. The third thing is the capacity to learn. So one is education. Education I have already spoken about, but here I'm talking about learning. Learning in terms of your client. What does your client do? So if I have taken a case, say any civil case or a matrimonial case or any case, or a filing before the company law board or somewhere, it is extremely essential for me as a lawyer to understand the in-depth. I have to do a very in-depth assessment of my case. Some people think that only things which are relevant to a case is something which a lawyer should focus on. But I believe that unless you go deep in terms of understanding the client, understanding the background of the client, understanding the commercial dispute, understanding, it. So one has to go down very, very deep into the case, or whatever issue you are handling with your client. For example, if I'm doing a defense transaction, it is very important for me to understand what is the product that we are negotiating with the government. And unless I understand the product, I will not be able to qualitatively work on the project that my client has given to me. So that learning is extremely important, and how I did it. So when I started my career, it was SR Gujarat, which was into steel manufacturing at that point of time. Then I moved to Xerox, which was automation, which was photocopiers, fax machines. So you had to learn the entire industry. How does a photocopier work? Because we used to have consumer forum cases in those days. So how would you argue before a consumer forum unless you understand how a Xerox machine works? And then I moved to, from Xerox, I moved to Electrolux. So I had to then understand what are the different models of washing machine we produce, what are the different model of refrigerators we produce, what are the air conditioners that we produce. So um, then you have to work with your business people, that how does the distribution of refrigerators happen? Because if you are now fighting against a dealer who has not paid up, you have to first understand what are the post-dated checks that have been received, what is the commercial transaction, what is the ledger, how have the business people um, 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 treated the transaction in their books. So that understanding of the client and the business you are working or supporting becomes extremely critical. So I learned various industries that I worked for. So I learned to be so I first became a lawyer, and then this lawyer inside me can now work for any industry, whether it's aviation and defense today, whether it was uh, um, ITES or mutual fund or private equity in Fidelity, or whether it was Walt Disney Company, which was making films or cartoon characters or consumer products. I had to understand the every nuance of business, which I say is about 40 or 50% of your job. So whenever you deal with a client which is new, you will know what are the legal aspects because you are a lawyer. But what you don't know is the other 50% is what does the client do. And that is where the education, the learning becomes extremely important. Not only from the legal aspect, but also from the business aspect, from the commercial aspect, that lawyers are expected to learn. And some people on this call may have questions as to, well, in LLB, we were not taught as to how to read a balance sheet or how to, um, or M&A, or, the course was not good. But even if the course was not good, that does not mean that you cannot learn more. So there are enough opportunities, enough programs that, universities run. So whatever specialization you need to do, that should be done. The fourth important aspect for bringing about qualitative uh, uh, value, I would say that keep a broader mindset. Uh, Keep a broader mindset. Uh, don't restrict yourself to, or don't over specialize in law. You know, if somebody would have asked me that question, say 15 to 20 years ago, what would you advise after we do LLB? So perhaps my answer at that point of time would have been, why don't you do an LLM? But today, when students ask me this question, I normally ask them, why don't you do an MBA? Because if you do an MBA along with law, so law will enable you to become very, very thorough on the legal aspects, the structural aspects. But the business studies or an MBA will turn your career opportunity on a 360-degree level. Because then 180 degree, you have already learned law. The other 180 degree that we did not learn was the business aspect. So if we do LLB and say MBA, so that gives you a complete 360-degree view of your client. You can then, why do you only want to be a lawyer? Why do you only want to be a general counsel? Why don't you be a general counsel and a strategy officer, chief strategy officer of a big company? Why can't you develop strategies for the growth of business? Why can't you be the chief risk officer? And risk is not a legal risk only. Risk is a business risk also. So by doing this, we are not using just 5% of our brain. Perhaps we are using a 15-20% of our brain by learning more and more skills. So skilling and learning is extremely important. And also, what we should think is, we should understand that legal profession is a domestic profession. So we are practicing in a jurisdiction. So whatever we are learning as lawyers, say at Delhi Law Faculty, is a Indian law subject. We will be taught international law also, which is perhaps WTOs and treaties and all those things, but that does not make us a foreign lawyer. So the other way of looking at learning is that I may want to become a foreign lawyer also. And learning about these skills, say from a US point of view, from a Europe point of view. I did company secretary in UK. I did I'm a solicitor of England and Wales. So how does it? So somebody should ask me, how does that help you? So it helps me because I work in a global environment in my organization, which operates in over 180 countries. So when we are sitting as a group of international lawyers within our organization, we go to a conference outside India. You are then benchmarked with lawyers who are working, say, in Russia, or you are benchmarked with lawyers who are working in UK or Europe, who also have a broader mindset. And then it is time for us as law professionals in this country that we should not be constrained by whatever is happening here. I completely understand that India has enough great opportunities. Whatever lawyers we train, whatever lawyers come out, everybody will do extremely well, because 130 crores is a great population. But why do we restrict the other side of the world, where there are also enough opportunities for us, which we can do sitting from India? For example, a lot of my counterparts are general counsels not only for India. They also perhaps have bigger territories. They have like Middle East, like they are head of legal for Asia Pacific. They are looking at Europe, sitting from India or from Dubai or from Singapore. So That capability is very, very necessary to develop, and which we will be able to develop bringing about excellence by doing a structured learning. By structured learning, I would say definitely is one of a surest way of getting you there. Because otherwise, unstructured learning has its own limitations. You will not be able to demonstrate very effectively, you know, like for example, somebody would have done a research of a cross-border M&A transaction, say in United States or in UK. But if you do not have a structured learning um, uh, tag with you, you will perhaps not be able to demonstrate to the HR department of that organization how you did that learning. How many time, how many hours did you devote outside India to do that structured learning? So that is very, very important. The and the last thing, before we ask questions to our from our students who are on this call, I would like to say that it is very, very essential for lawyers to um, 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 the ethics and integrity is very, very important for every professional, not only lawyers but every professional, including medicine, including chartered accountant, accountancy, but more for law. It is very, very important for law because it is very important that an organization will have, people say, does an organization have a conscience? I say organization does have a conscience, provided there is somebody to shake that conscience. And more often than not, lawyers play that role of ethics and conscience keepers of the organization. Lawyers have that ability to read between the lines. Lawyers have the ability to analyze the regulations. What are the regulations that are coming? How it impacts your business? And if the management is now wanting to do something which is uh, incorrect or which is against the social behavior or ethics, that is something which a lawyer has to stand up and say that whatever is being done here is not correct, and I don't subscribe to that view. Um, we have seen internationally that some of the general counsels in 2008 stood up, when US banks were failing, and they had informed the management that this is something which should not be done. So when the law enforcement agencies came, they asked for emails and communication with the general counsel office would have initiated, and the general counsel's view was appreciated because they said the right thing. So no matter what, you have to fight for the right thing, and it will happen in litigation, it will happen in your case. If you believe that your client is, you have to fight for the rights of your client ethically, and immoral practices can never be tolerated, they will never be tolerated, and people who have indulged in such practices have been penalized and punished by the system. So these are some of the important things, Dr. Sharma, that I wanted to convey, that these are the things that if we put into practice, we will definitely bring about excellence at work. So these are my opening remarks. So any questions, any thoughts, we can deliberate on that.
Right, sir. Sir, so I want to start with that what is your experience of in-house counsel? Means if our students wants to go to that area, what you suggest to them? How they go, how they can proceed as in-house counsel?
So, the in-house counsel, usually, when somebody is hiring, like companies like us, when we are hiring, we always, because see, we will look for a experience which is, say, about 4 to 5 years experience. So somebody who has worked for a law firm for 4 to 5 years perhaps is ideally suited to be able to move to a work of a in-house lawyer, And the reason why I'm saying 4 or 5 years, because those 4 or 5 years working in a law firm or working in your own independent practice will expose you to hundreds of issues. Which, for example, it may be a civil dispute. It may be you may be working on a brief for a M&A activity. So it will develop you, because when the moment you come to a in-house role, you are expected to deliver from day one.
Okay.
Unlike in a law firm, when when you are inducted in a law firm, for first year you are treated as a associate, or then a senior associate, and when you are able to develop as an associate or a senior associate, when you have handled work pressure, is the right time for you to go and fit into a corporate environment. In terms of, I think, value, both practice side and in-house have a similar kind of a work profile. Like even people may think that an in-house role has a work-life balance. It does not. Like the practice side, when lawyers work pretty much 24/7. Even in my role, being the head of legal for a big foreign company, subsidiary in India, I always work on my emails even on a Saturday or on a Sunday. And I also prepare for meetings which are happening on Monday. Pretty much like what a law office would do, that for your case on a Monday, you would work on a Sunday evening.
Right.
So that, from that perspective, there is no change. In terms of emoluments also, I would say, there are both sides. Some independent or general practitioners earn a lot. Same is true for in-house lawyers also. But in terms of emoluments, I would say perhaps it would be similar what we have. Sometimes we hear, and I don't know that fact, that some of the law firms pay astronomically to their senior partners, which is true. I don't think general counsels are paid that much, but the salaries are very, very decent, extremely decent. So I would encourage that. I would think that my experience as an in-house counsel has been very, very satisfying. I, in fact, never worked for a law firm in my career, because I started as a company secretary, as I said. But I do think that corporate experience is excellent. The simple reason is you get an opportunity to learn the business side of it, which as a practicing lawyer, you may not get that chance. You may be hired for a particular case, but learning about the product, working with salespeople, marketing people, finance teams, HR, is something you will perhaps not get that experience if you are an external counsel. So those advantages. So it is like I am a lawyer, but I also am exposed to business aspects. So that is an advantage you get as a in-house lawyer. But some people have a flair for practice.
Yeah.
Like I have spoken to many students, and they're very, very clear that कि हमें तो practice ही करनी है, which also is the right thing to do, which is perfectly fine.
Okay. So can you tell it what kind of students, because students are very confused at this stage, whether they go for, because these in-house and law firms, corporate world are lucrative. Because if you talk about the litigation aspect, initial years are very tough years. So sometimes students, they, whenever we call a firm or a company to our center for placement, we see majority of the students apply for that. And of course, the bent of mind in faculty of law is towards litigation. But still, so what you tell the students that how to means frame their mind that for which work they are more suitable, how they can find out themselves.
So, like a LLB program, Dr. Sharma, LLB program teaches you everything.
Yeah.
So LLB program doesn't only teach you litigation. It also teaches you Companies Act. It also teaches you FEMA. It also teaches you SEBI laws. So what I would advise students is that when you go out of the campus, try and gain experience in all the verticals that you have learned in law. So for first 5 to 7 years, try and when you join a firm, try and do work which gives you a complete grounding of what you have studied in law. Because what you studied here in 3 years or 5 years program, you will take similar time in terms of doing practical work related to what you studied in law. So once you have done that, the initial 5, 6, 7 years of your work life, if you are able to rotate in different facets of what you learned in the law school, then you decide what specialization you need to do. So for example, if you are very, very passionate about, say, corporate law, taking a decision today when you are just out of college may not be the right thing for you. You should first experiment that what is litigation, because for an in-house role, knowing litigation is also very important. So if you have done that litigation yourself, if you have done a M&A yourself, first absorb and gain as much as practical experience you can basis what you have studied in law, and then after 7 years make a decision.
Okay.
Because then you may think that well, in-house role 5 years ago was looking very attractive to me, but अब competition law है, उसकी litigation मुझे बड़ी अच्छी लगती है. So that because once you have done that, और bankruptcy, insolvency की practice बहुत अच्छी लगती है, या corporate matters की अच्छी लगती है. So after those 6, 7 years, you should decide to specialize. Don't set your pace very, very fast. First, try and absorb what you have learned. First, gain work experience in what you have learned, and then take a decision.
Right. So, sir, do you think that it is possible to have internship in the in-house areas, or internship for the students, whether they take the students, and if yes, how they take the law students as intern in their companies or the firms?
See, some of the firms I have seen, some companies have an internship program. Unfortunately, our company so far doesn't have, but we are trying for it. So when I'm a big supporter of the fact that whatever training sessions we do, it should be for a long-term basis. Yeah. Because students come for an internship for a month or so. In a month or so, there would be hardly anything which law firms will offer. So my personal preference is that whatever internship programs have been designed, for example, if you look at, let us compare different professions. So if we look at, say, chartered accountancy, CA has a minimum 3 years of internship. Company secretary has a minimum of 50 months internship. But for law, our program has been structured that we do internships only during the breaks, which is to me not a very sufficient time in terms of training the students. So our education system perhaps need a little overhaul, especially for lawyers, that the training programs that we do. So whatever, I fully appreciate the fact that good law schools like yours, you have very strong focus on, say, moot courts, on putting students to judges and lawyers during breaks. But if I look at, say, a 3-year program, 3-year program will have how many? Every year 2, so 6 breaks in a year. So 6 into 2, 2 months training, 6, how many? Yeah, so the training component for our LLB programs perhaps is not sufficient. There should be more focus on training, and training should be aimed at 360-degree training. So you should also have, for example, get trained, say, in a tax firm, take training in a tax firm, take training in an M&A firm, take training in a litigation firm, take training with a trial court lawyer, take training with a high court or a Supreme Court lawyer. Right. With all of them, so that 360-degree view of training is very, very important. And once you have done that, then you should take a decision of which area is you are interested in. Then decide on your, whether you want to do an LLM, which subject you want to do an LLM once you have taken a decision, and then also, perhaps taking an MBA
Right.
is a decision that should be taken.
Okay. Sir, one more thing. One resource person came from this field, and he said that sometimes, because in his life, he switched over from in-house to law firm, then spent many years in law firm, then again to in-house, then spent many years, then again to a law firm practicing. So what do you advise, that is it good for a person to, pursue his career, or what is this reason behind it?
See, there is no right or wrong. I think it is purely a personal choice that if somebody, wants to take a break from active litigation practice to a corporate, work, or a work of a, what we say as work of a solicitor. Because what I'm doing inside an organization is a work like a work of a solicitor. So I am basically, my work is advisory. I'm not a litigator, or I'm not a, an advocate on record or something like that. So it depends upon, which side people want to switch and how frequently. At least, if I see myself, I am more comfortable the way I am today. I will be, I'm very happy that I am working for a world's largest aviation and defense organization, where I'm able to support all of their businesses. So that is a good satisfaction level for me. For others, it may be a different thing. So it depends upon what people want to think. But what I want to tell students on this webinar is, think what you want to do. Always take a decision after having spoken to many people, but that decision should be yours. I may be telling you one thing, you may hear me out, but if it does not suit your personality or your frame of mind, do what you want to do. Because what you like, if is what you do, you will achieve success very easily. If you try to do something which people are telling you to do, but that is not coming from inside, perhaps you may not be able to, excel in that area. So whatever is coming from your mind, from your heart, is something what one should do. So, we are there to guide you. But
okay, sir, my query is that when you switch over to one side to the other side, and again, how much time it will take a person to set in that scenario, because it is completely different kind of work. At these two places, like in-house and out-house, they're two different. So how much time it will take for a person to set his mind, yes, now I'm doing in-house, or I'm doing the litigation?
See, one thing is very important. When you switch from a external counsel to an in-house role, people management is very, very important. Because remember, when you were working as an external lawyer in a law firm, for example, let's take that situation. You were working with everybody who was a lawyer. But when you come inside a company, you are the only lawyer. So where in your law firm, people will understand, oh, section so-and-so of Arbitration Act, you understand what you're saying. But if you say the same thing in a company, people will not understand what you're saying. So you have to learn to be able to be, conveying the right thing with a very simplistic answer. For example, the emails that I write versus the email that I receive from law firms are very different. So, for example, law firms will send me, something which is, say, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs. But if I do a same 6 paragraph to my business colleagues, I will immediately get a feedback. We have not understood what you have said.
True.
So that adjustment in a in-house is very, very real. It is very, very important. And so you have to learn to be talking in the same language what people can understand in a company.
So means it does not face much problem. So if you know this thing that you have to change it, so you can work accordingly.
See, in terms of legal aspects, I think the person is the best person, because there is no other expert in the company than you as a legal person. But how do you gain that respect from the business colleagues? They may at times feel that he's a right lawyer, he's a great lawyer, but he writes such a long email citing so many sections and precedents that we don't understand what he's trying to say.
Right.
So he may be a gold medalist But if you are a good gold medalist in research, you should be also be a gold medalist in be able to convey your views and solution to business in a summary form.
Right, right. Okay, so now I want to take few questions from the students, then will not take much of your time. So first question I will take from Niket. He's asking, good afternoon, sir. Do you think it is beneficial for a 3-year student to pursue a CS course for a career in corporate sector?
Yes. So, it is definitely your choice. I found CS to be extremely helpful in my career because that was the first legal degree I had. And it did bring me up to, a level where, I had just qualified. I was just 25 and I was, doing a board meeting. So at a very young age, I was able to get to the people who were the promoters of the company. So that is one thing which the CS profession did give me. Um, and it also develops a very sound commercial experience. So yes, I would definitely, recommend that you should do that. But keep your mind open. As I said, things have changed. Things are changing. CS is a great profession. It will always remain to be a great profession, but you have other opportunities also. Like I said, why not an MBA? Because law is something which you have done. Do something which is complementary, but the other side of the circle, the other 180 degree.
Right. Okay, sir. Other question is from Yash Kumar. He's asking, sir, please guide us as a fresh law graduate. I want to establish an independent practice at Delhi High Court. I am aware, if not through of filing and Delhi High Court rules. Okay, I am aware, if not through of filing the Delhi High Court. Okay, so he knows some rules about the Delhi High Court, so he wants to start as an independent practitioner in Delhi High Court. So what do you say, sir?
Immediately do that. Why not? Because it all the start is it is not a rosy start for anybody. Any kind of a professional will initially face some problems. I faced in my career initially, a lot of problems, because for any professional to build that trust and confidence and get that balance is very important. So, you should, whatever is in your heart, you will be a very successful lawyer. Why not? Do it immediately and be focused. Keep on learning new things. You may be good in filing today, but develop a very strong control over the legal aspects and the legal subject, so that, your client, whenever they come to you, the clients are extremely happy and they trust you. So go for it. Absolutely.
Right. So the last question I will take, sir, which I think you have already answered, but I just read it. How much difference does it make to have a CS along with a LLB degree in litigation corporate sector?
It is very helpful. For example, if you were to develop your practice, say in competition law or in NCLT, it will, so, I'm not saying that having a multiple degree is a sure shot way to success. Having a multiple degree enhances your knowledge, which you are, if able to, translate effectively in litigation, it will definitely give you an edge. But that does not mean that people who are not company secretaries, who have done 3-year law, will not be successful. It depends, completely on you, how aware you are of your subject, of your knowledge, and how you can translate that into legal practice. So, I'm not for any moment recommending that people should have multiple degrees. What I'm recommending that people should definitely keep on learning in whatever way they can.
Okay, sir. Now, 1-2 questions again they are asking. So, what is the importance of doing online courses in those subjects which are not in our 3 years course curriculum? So, online, he is asking that,
yeah. No, so yeah, so so today, because of this COVID situation, we see that internationally online learning has become a big way of learning across the border. I would strongly encourage people to look for whatever courses are being offered in country, outside country. For example, with Oxford universities, with Harvard universities, with India. In India, if you do it from your own law faculty, or you do from NLU, go for it. So it's not about a certification that you get. It's about the content that you should focus on. What is this great content, whether it's online or it's in a class? What is this great content that will help me? And that is what should be our focus area. So if I'm doing, say, something say if I do want to specialize, say, in WTO, World Trade Organization, or international disputes, then I should look for something which is available at Harvard or Oxford or Cambridge. Whether there is something which is available, and then go for it. That is the great way to learn.
Sir, another question is, sir, is there any limitation on growth in corporate field?
No, there is no limit. There is no limit for any professional to achieve anything in life. It is not about where you come from. It is not about how you look. It is not about where you have studied law from. I'm an example myself, that I was constantly told, oh, Merit University, you don't know anything. I said, no, I told, every time somebody used to say that to me, I used to say, no, I know everything. No, I know everything. I'm good. And that is how you develop your inner confidence. So when you think that you are good, the moment you think you do research, a lot of in-depth research on your subject, you will become good. There is no doubt about it. But don't say that I'm good when you have not done in-depth study. So that gives you a false comfort that I am good, but you are not good. It should be, you should do complete research, complete assessment, and analyze your subject, do a deep research on what are the cases, how is law developing internationally. Then you say I'm good, then you will definitely be good.
Right. So the last question will be, sir, can you tell us a little bit about the international trade law scope in India?
So international trade, it is something which will always have a great flavor. And I would, so no matter what any countries say that we are not doing globalization, we are doing only localization, or the fact remains is that for development of any country, international trade will always be important. We cannot live in isolation. We may have some policies. For example, we have now a self-reliant India declaration by the Prime Minister, which is a great step. But that does not mean he's saying that he is not going to do international trade. He's saying that he's going to develop local industries, and then he wants to set up an export base from India. So that again makes it very, very important that we should learn about international trade, and we should become experts of international trade. It is very, very important.
Sir, I wanted to stop, but the last question is very interesting, which attracts me also. It says, what is the recruiter see in a company like yours?
So, that's a great question. And what a recruiter always see is, I always am a big fan of the 360-degree thinking. So whenever there is a candidate, I would always like to probe how aware that candidate is about what is happening around us. So for example, if somebody were to come to me today and for an interview, and I would, so that person may be, say, being interviewed, say, for a contracts position or a compliance position, but I would put that question to him or her as to, what do you think about this self-declaration, self-reliant India declaration? To gauge, because you are a lawyer, you are expected to know that, especially on these big, strong government initiatives, or for example, what is happening in Pangong Lake, what are the legal ramifications, what is the LAC issue. So those kind of things is, how well prepared. And the third thing which I would definitely see is, like to see in a candidate when you're coming for an interview, is how much have you researched about the company where you are going for an interview. Right. So I would ask that person, what have you read about our company? and if the person is not comfortable in answering that question, is definitely a negative mark.
Right.
Because when you are coming for an interview for a company, you are expected to do a very, very thorough research
Right.
before you come for that interview.
Right. So, sir, with this, I want to conclude the question answer session. But before we say bye to each other, I must say that you have discussed wonderfully that how the initial failures in your life did not prevent you for work harder in your further future. And you see that you started initially, you thought that everything is failed, I'm not going to successful, but that did not overcome on your personality, and you want to prove the perception wrong of the people that yes, this is the university, this is the schooling, etc. So in order to prove them wrong, you work more hard, which I could understand. And one thing which you have mentioned is that you have to broaden your perspective of education, which I fully agree with you, because if we confine ourselves to only one area, it will not increase the knowledge in other areas which are related and which can be very helpful for our excellence. Another thing which you have discussed is about trust, that how the people can build trust in you, that is with the help of knowledge, excellence, and understanding your client and its whole background properly to do justice in your work. And also you have mentioned that keep a broader mind, a broad mindset, which I say yes, it should be very, very helpful. And you mentioned that you have to do a structured learning. Yes, this is very, very helpful nowadays, because we have so many opportunities at very young age. So if we plan everything beforehand, that will be definitely beneficial. And in order to achieve success, you have mentioned about ethics and integrity. That is very important, because if you do some kind of unethical practice initially, it will not go in a long way to help the people. So we all also emphasize in our degree on professional ethics, and we say that you have to develop this kind of thing in your personality, that it's not easy to get success immediately by any means. You have to wait, you have to work hard for that. Sir,
and one more thing, Dr. Sharma, I would like to say is students should prepare a report card.
Okay.
You know, a report card, it was very common when we were in school, that there was a report card which had 3 semesters.
Yeah.
And every semester or every 4 or 3 or 4 months, there will be exams. And when you were ranked, you got a 80%, you got a 60%. So keep that report card with you in your mind. You should put what are the weaknesses that you have, what are the strengths that you have. For example, for me, one of the biggest weakness was, as I said, why I failed initially, I was not able to communicate. So that was one of the biggest mistake or a biggest weakness I had, that I was not able to communicate, and I wanted to overcome that problem. So I worked with seminars like these, with going out and talking internationally. Public speaking is what I developed. And keep a list of what are the negative things that you think needs to be developed, whether it's communication in English.
Right.
If somebody is feeling that I can't speak English properly, improve. You have to overcome that inhibition. Don't live with that inhibition if you think that's an inhibition. So that report card should always remain with you. Whatever you want to improve, give yourself time, take a course, take a program, and improve on that skill. So that is very, very important.
So wonderful suggestion in the last, I must say. And thank you. You have accepted our invitation 10 years back. I'm very happy that when we organized a workshop, you were there, and students were very happy at that time also. I believe that students will be very happy this time also. Thank you once again for giving this opportunity and sparing your valuable time for our students. Definitely in future also we'll keep in touch, and we'll keep inviting you for the this kind of guidance to our students. Thank
Always
you.
most welcome. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Thank you.